And that's when I kind of really decided I had spent way too long grieving my father. I felt like I had just spent so much time in grief that I kind of thought life is too short. I can't spend this much time being in such a deep despair and a dark place. So I decided that I was going to jump into grief, that grief pool, head first into the deep end.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine, and today I had a wonderful conversation with Barbara DeMers. Barbara is a healer, she is an Akashic Record Reader, and she works with Awakening Healing Access. And oh, what a heartfelt conversation. Barbara has such a gentle and warm soul that it's just lovely to just listen to her share her wisdom. We talked about her awakening journey and how grief and the loss of her father kind of led to that whole process, something I believe many of us can relate to. And we talked about her healing touch modality. We talk about how life as a hairdresser really kind of hones your ability on reading people and understanding energies and all of that fun stuff. And we talk about the collaboration that she has with Awakening Healing Access and so much more. I believe you're going to love this conversation with Barbara, and I can't wait to get to it. But first, please like, share, and subscribe. As you know, stories make wonderful teachers, and these beautiful souls are coming on here and sharing their heartfelt experiences, which in turn, I believe, are beautiful teachers for all of us. So I would love you to support them and like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And here is our conversation with Barbara. Welcome, Barbara. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you, Linda. I'm very glad you asked, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. For those of you that don't know, I don't know Barbara per se, but she's from my hometown in Minnesota. So this is
Minnesota.
kind of exciting to chat with you. And
Yes.
you're, I
I,
think, related to one of my very good longtime friends too, Anne.
and and who, oh, yes. And I think I'm not sure what year you graduated, but I think you were friends with my neighbor. We're in high school with her.
Mm,
This,
82, class of 82.
yeah. Or maybe not. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
can't. That's so long ago. You can't. Who can remember, right?
Well, and so much changes, right? I mean, I'm curious to know about your awakening process and how that came to be because I'm sure we were all very different in high school than we are now.
Oh, yes. Yes, weren't we? Yes, very much so. My awakening process. Well, I think it really jumped on track. Um, I'll back up a little bit. I guess it kind of started after my father passed away. I was 26 years old,
Mm,
and um, I, of course, grieved very hard, and it was a very difficult time. Not a lot of my friends or acquaintances around me at that time had been through an experience, people my age. So I think I went into a very deep, dark place for a very long time.
mm,
And I started questioning, like, what is, what is this life? What is life about? Like, what are we doing here? And why? The, all those kind of big questions. Kind of start exploring, not really too much with in spirituality yet, but then I had my children after that. And then about 10 years after my father died, my mother passed away. And that's when I kind of really decided I had spent way too long grieving my father. I felt like I had just spent so much time in grief that I kind of thought life is too short. this, I can't spend this much time being in such a deep despair and a dark place. So I decided that I was going to jump into grief, that grief pool head first into the deep
Wow.
end and just do this. Like I have got children I have to care for. I can't, I just can't spend so much time. And I was devastated, having lost both my parents by the time I was 36. So I had at the time, I'm a hairstylist by trade. Um, I was working in a salon and I had a client who was um, a family therapist. And she started talking to me because she knew I was grieving really hard. She started talking to me about that she was adding to her practice. She was adding Reiki to her practice. So this was back in 1997 or 98. And I was like, oh, she's weird. I don't know what that is, but that sounds weird. And but she kept talking. I mean, every time she'd come in, she'd kind of mention it, and I was kind of like, oh, that just sounds so like, yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? So, but then I started, those how those synchronicities start happening in life, and I started one week after she had been in for a hair appointment. I started running into her all over the place. Like literally, I went to get gas, and there she is getting gas at the pump across from me. Went to the grocery store, turned the corner, and there she is at the grocery store. I mean, like for one week, I swear every single day I ran into her. And finally, I thought, oh, fine, fine.
The spirit is relentless.
Yes, I will go see her. Well, kind of what was happening at the same time, another very close friend of mine, mother had passed away about 3 months after my mother. And her sisters had found, remember that I think it was the Edge magazine, which was really popular back in the late
But
90s.
those years we don't talk about.
Yeah, long, long, long time ago. And they had found uh an ad in there about a psychic medium. And so they were going to go see her because they said, the ad said that they could connect you with your deceased loved ones. So she called me up. She goes, "Do you want to come with us? We're going to go see a medium." And I'm like, "Sure. What's a medium?" I was new on this path. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come with." So it happened to be that in the same week, I was going to see this gal who did the Reiki, and I was going to see a medium with my friends. So I go to see the gal who does the Reiki, and we sat and talked for quite a while and had a very nice conversation. So she goes, "Let's get you up on the table and we'll do this Reiki." So she started this session, and at one point she held my hand and she said, "Just as I suspected, you are a natural born healer." And I was like, "What? Like, what does that even mean?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." Here again, still thinking, weirdo. So the session was nice. It was relaxing to be on the table. And I did book another session before I left because I was just curious enough. Well, a couple days later, we go down and we see the medium. And of course, my friends they were afraid, so they made me go first. So we're sitting with her, and she says to me, she says, "Your life is about to drastically change." She says, "You are a natural born healer." And I was like, "What the heck?" I have two people in one week who say the exact same words to me. And I remember driving home thinking, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means. But I continue to see the gal, and well, actually, I continued to see both of them for quite some time. I still see the psychic medium, who now is really much more of a spiritual counselor. And it's just kind of been an amazing journey. I started looking into, I didn't go the Reiki route right away. I did do healing touch. I started taking some classes in healing touch. I did become a certified healing touch practitioner.
What is that exactly?
So healing touch it's an energy modality, and healing touch basically what they're trying to do is get these Eastern energy healing philosophies into Western medicine. So they train everybody so that when you're doing protocol, everybody is doing, everybody who's been trained in this is doing the same protocol, and they teach you how to chart like nurses chart.
Mm.
There are places out in the East and West Coast, and like in Colorado, that's kind of where it's headquartered, where they do even have people on staff who do, healing touch. So just like Reiki, it's a modality. And I did become a Reiki master eventually. I've studied pranic healing. And now I'm working with a group called Awakening Healing Access, and we teach retreat workshops around the United States, kind of teaching some advanced healing energy stuff. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit in numerology and tarot, and I do Akashic record readings. That's something that I do I'm sitting in my healing space in my home right now.
Nice, nice.
So yeah,
Okay,
so it
so
kind of that all
let's go
started me
back.
on a journey. So yes,
Let's go back to that. So you're learning these modalities now, and they're starting to come more into your life.
right.
And how are you feeling about it? Are you ready to be a weirdo like everybody else?
No, no, of course, no. I actually fell off the path at one point. For a while, there was a point in time in the early 2000s, I believe it was, where I actually started getting some, I don't know what else to call it, but I'll say some hate mail, saying
Mm.
that I was doing the devil's work, and
Oh
I got
no.
really frustrated with that. And I also got frustrated at that time, kind of with the whole healing community, because I felt like there was a little bit of point in time in there where this kind of stuff was, well, maybe I was getting more immersed in the community, and people are saying, "Oh my gosh, you can't do, healing under a full moon. You have to walk around the table counterclockwise and throw salt over your left shoulder,
Oh
and I
geez.
was like, now we're going into dogma,
Yeah.
just like I was trying to get away from, and kind of all those things started building up, and I kind of decided to move off the path for a little while, because I'm just like, nope, that's what I was trying to get away from, and here it is showing up again. So, but of course, spirit doesn't let you off the path for very long, and so um I got back on, and
How did that
doing
happen?
kind of very organically, just kind of, people requesting healing sessions, and I think I've been very, like, the fortunate thing is, like, working the work that I do, my day job, if you will, working in the salon was a great study in energy.
Oh
I mean,
my, yes.
you're working in people's energy fields. We're kind of one of the few professions who can actually touch people. So, that was just a great place to, I wouldn't say practice, if you will,
Hone
and, and,
your,
and right, and
yeah.
learn about, just to be able to how sensing energies, being able to just experience, you know, all different kinds of things. So, and now I still am behind the chair. And I love it. It's my passion as well as my healing is. And it's just nice to kind of be able to try to combine them. I'm learning. I just went to a light up, we call it the light up event here in Minneapolis, and there was the guest speaker. Um, her name is Dee Burton. She's a life coach, and she talked about living an and life. And I think that was like a real big aha. And I think there's so many of us in this field who are like, I'm a hairstylist and I'm a healer. And to say that instead of always kind of diminishing that part of who we are,
Mm.
which I think that we often do.
Oh, I'm going to
You know?
adopt that. I'm a
Yeah.
photographer and
And Yes.
Yes,
Instead of saying,
absolutely.
oh, that's just kind of my little bitty side gig or whatever, it's just really embracing that is part of who we are. Um, and have I done that fully? Mm, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there.
Yeah. What do you feel is left to step into that perhaps you're not fully embodying yet or being public with?
I think that's just exactly it. I guess I don't really need to be all that public, I'm not trying to um I guess I just want to help the people that cross my path, you know, that are interested and who are looking and who are ready. And I think as I keep honing um not only my own skills, but my own spiritual practice, I think that just kind of that's how you better show up in the world, just kind of be that presence and that luminary
Mm.
for others. So
And
sometimes I
we,
don't think it's all about the practice
yeah,
as much as just the being. So
yeah, we need those luminaries right now, big time.
yes, yes.
Now, have you seen, because it seems like Reiki and yoga are the gateways into spiritual practice. Have you, since that time back in the late 90s, how have you seen more acceptance come online for what you do?
Oh, I think definitely, especially in the past, I want to say 5 or 6 years. I think that it's just the terminology. You hear people talking about the vibe. They want to have good vibes, positive vibes. Just even some of the terminology that's out there. I think
Yeah.
people are much more accepting of it. I found before that people were either they got it or they didn't get it. And if they didn't get it, they weren't interested in it. Because I'd always, they'd ask me about it, and I'd say, "Well, are you familiar with yoga? Have you heard of chakras? And we all have a field of energy that's around us." And either they would be like, "Yeah," or they'd be like, "No." And they would almost stop the conversation right there because it was unfamiliar. And I know just even recently, I had someone who said, I never really got it, but I'm starting to notice that there's many things that affect my own atmosphere, were the words they used. And I'm like, yes, yes. She goes, things that are happening out in the world directly affect my own personal atmosphere. And I kind of thought that was a kind of a interesting awareness where she didn't really have the terminology, but she did have the
Yeah.
terminology. So
What do you feel is going on to expand that awareness in people that perhaps were not awake, that may be dipping their toe in now?
I, well, that could be a very deep topic, couldn't it? I think there's so many things going on in the atmosphere around
Yes.
us, in the um, that I think it starts to affect people. They're just like, there's something going on outside of myself um, that is making me feel this way. So, and I think people are searching for something beyond themselves as well. I think, well, for many of us, we always are searching externally, right? Trying to find the thing that will help, that will assist, that will make us feel better or fill that need or that want or that desire. And I think when you search long enough and hard enough, you can sometimes find somebody that is holding up that mirror for you that makes you turn around and look back at yourself. And that can be a very strenuous and painful process for many of us. So I think that that's kind of what's happened over especially over the past 3 years. But also even before that, I think it kind of started.
Do you feel that we are in the Great Awakening? Do you feel there's a shift in humanity?
I think yes, I think the humanity is trying to shift. And I think but there's another part that's really trying to keep us where we're at. I don't think that these kind of things happen quickly. I think they're a very slow process. I think it's, kind of like a dance. We go two steps forward and three steps back. But that's, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a overnight. It is a quickening, but it's definitely not as quick as we probably would all hope for.
Yeah, I'm seeing things shift quite a bit. The language is a big one, like you mentioned, um, which makes me happy, but I also intuitively don't feel like we're going to see it in our lifetime. It's going to be multiple generations getting there, but it does
Right.
seem like we're going there.
Right. And I think if we look back to past generations and when it all, it started a long time ago. Like I said, I think those shifts take time. But how exciting that we get to be a part of it, you
Yeah.
know? That is very exciting. It's so exciting to see where when you think back to where we came from and how much has shifted since then. I think sometimes we think it doesn't happen quick enough, but if we look back, there's been a lot of change, a lot of growth and a lot of acceptance. And, even in these times where I think it seems like I said, it's like that we feel like we've taken two steps back, but in those steps back, it's that recognition, of like some of these social injustices where we're recognizing that, this things weren't right,
Yeah.
that there needs to be change. So it feels like a step back, but really, I think it is a step forward. So, yeah,
And it's a good mirror for all of us too, like you said earlier, not just individuals being mirrors to us, but society and things in general.
right. Yes, very much so.
So the grief thing, how would you assist somebody in getting through grief?
Mhm.
Because it seems like there's a lot of folks crossing over now. Um, so there's a lot of people holding grief. Well, how would you help somebody through that process?
Mhm. I think grief can be very, very complicated because it's not something that ever, um, I don't want to say that you really ever get over. I would say it's kind of a club that you join and a badge that you wear if you're experiencing a loss of a loved one. Um, but I think listening, having a deep presence with somebody, I think that's really important. Making sure that they have a network of people that they can, turn to. If you know someone who's grieving, just letting them know, hey, I'm here, checking in on them, letting them know that you're available to be that person if they need just to reach out to somebody, um, helping them to find a purpose and a lot of times people like to find a purpose or a passion in their grief, depending upon
Mm,
how their loved one, if they can give back to a community, either that could be many things. If you lost somebody through let's say through cancer, and then maybe you want to, give back either, financially or give your time to a organization that helps, you know, other people who are suffering through that disease. So I think, if you can find a purpose or a passion to kind of start giving to that, it can also be very helpful. Um,
And energetically, is there a way to assist in that, in moving that through, or is it all a singular process? I need to do the work for myself, or can I get assistance in that energetically and moving
I
that
think
grief through?
I think energetically, I mean, when I was working with that my weirdo Reiki person who is not a weirdo at all, she's just a glorious, wonderful human. Um, the energy work really did help. And I think part of it helped me to be present in my body and to kind of be in a place of stillness and calm where I could really kind of recognize and feel the feelings. Because I think so many times we try to run from the feelings, like, I can't, this is too hard. I don't want to feel this. I can't feel this. I can't deal with these feelings. And having someone sit with you in deep presence and deep stillness, I think kind of allows kind of some of those feelings to kind of really move through and you kind of come to a better understanding of them, or being able to relate and let them to move through you and know that they're not going to overtake who you are. So yes, I think energetically the energy work helps. That was a double there, but
And if you take that grief and don't address it and stuff it down, what are some of the consequences that you've seen happen from that?
well, I think with any kind of stuffed emotion, eventually can turn to some kind of physical ailment. Um, well, not only just depression and anxiety, but also it can lead to physical illness or physical symptoms in the body, not being able to sleep, headaches, you know, even digestive issues, stomach issues, back, physical pain, back pain, neck pain. So I think if you don't deal with the emotional issues, they definitely come up in the physical.
Yeah.
I find that a large percentage of the clients that I see in my healing room, that's what's beginning to happen. I think they're starting to notice that their stress is starting to show up physically, and
Mm.
um, they know they need to start dealing with how to move through life. Because we're all going to have stressors. We're
Yeah.
not going to get away from them. And sometimes those stressful situations are good because they spur us to move in a different direction, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
And
telling you
some
you're not
believe we signed up for it.
right. Well, yeah.
So,
We came here to experience life, and so it's through these life experiences that we learn and grow. I wouldn't be who I am today if um, these things hadn't happened in my past. They were definitely, some of them were burdens, but that those blessings need to live right next door to the trauma. We need to say, hey, that happened and that was hard and it was hard to get through, but it made me who I am today.
yeah,
And, you know,
we can
what,
see them as beautiful lessons.
right.
Takes
And none of us,
time.
right. It does take time. And none of us are go through life without some kind of trauma. Everybody has has a story. And those stories are important. And I don't think we should ever think that we're trying to release or let go of those stories. We don't need to live into the trigger of the story all the time. That's what we need to we're trying to let go of. But, to live into the moving past the trigger of the story and honoring the story, having respect for the story and saying, yes, I moved through that, and try to find some grace through those experiences.
Now, is stress the biggie that you're seeing with your clients now, or are there other things that are coming up that you're like, that's interesting. This seems to be a trend.
Oh, it's It is stress of some sort or another. Yes. I don't, usually it's a lot of, and boy, I'm the number one guilty person of this, is that external, looking externally for um, that relief, if you will, you know, that next best thing, that comparison and competition with society.
Hmm.
And I think that's a big thing that causes so many of us stress, I should say. Um, seeing, well, oh, look at they're on that nice vacation, and don't they all look so happy? And they just moved into this new big house and have this great new job, and they all look so happy. So that's always that external, looking externally for that thing that's going to bring you joy, which none of that comes from any external things. It all comes more, we need to find that inside of us, that joy, that
Yeah.
awe, that wonder of who
My
we are.
favorite quote is comparison is the thief of joy. And
Oh,
it's so
yeah,
true.
it
It's
is
so
so
true.
true.
And
It's so
it's
true.
hard not, and social media exacerbates that.
It does. It is, yes, it really, really does. Because
It's,
that's what we see all day long. And that's what we compare ourselves to. And we're always in competition with, with somebody else. They don't know it, but we
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Self-imposed.
Hmm. Yes,
Mm.
very much so.
So tell me a little bit about the Awakening Healing Access. What is that group about? What do you all do?
Well, they formed about three, oh, no, three, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It was a gal actually that I worked with in the salon years and years ago who started also in Healing Touch, and her and two other people in the Healing Touch community decided to kind of go outside of Healing Touch and start a group to kind of do some, I don't want to say really advanced energy work, but where they were kind of channeling their own, they were kind of getting some information on their own. And so I went to their first um, retreat workshop, just mostly just to kind of support her because she was starting this new thing. So I went, and I was kind of hooked. I was really into the work. It was really fun. So I went again, I went again, I went again. And then they started bringing on what we're called. I am a mentor presenter. So there's actually six or seven of us that collaborate together to bring this work out. So we each have it's just so fun to do that collaborative work
Oh
because
yeah.
we come together, and someone's like, I'm really getting this, and someone's like, oh, that's really interesting. That, I'm gonna work with that and see what I come up with. And everybody has their kind of their strength and their area of interest. And we just kind of collaborate and form these wonderful protocols and teachings. And so it's been a really positive experience. And it's kind of one of those situations where the work works us, so when
Mm.
we've done some stuff on trauma and autoimmune, and so it's like, but every time we do something, it's kind of like the work works us first. We all go through kind of a cleansing and clearing and some really rough times, and lots of areas of self-discovery. And it's been really great. It's something that has pushed my boundaries, where it's just kind of like there's been times where I'm like, I'm out. I'm done. And then it's just like you have this breakthrough, and you realize that you can and you will, and I do. And it just is such a beautiful realization when you can move past those areas of comfort.
Like what's an example of a big aha, like
Oh,
painful to go through, but when you got through it, you were like, oh wow.
We worked a lot on energetic patterns, kind of at the last workshop on what those things that trigger you, what do you energetically do? Are you one of those that you just go inside, or you try to, do you just kind of like freeze, or do you want something, from somebody else, you try to like cling on to somebody else and get them to agree with you. And so we really worked on some of those energetic patterns of what we do when we're in overwhelm. So we found ourselves in a lot of overwhelm, which was very interesting. And it was interesting to watch the different, watch yourself, try to become the observer of like, wow, look what I do. Wow, I'm being triggered right now and I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm I don't need to go down the rabbit hole. But here I go. I'm going, and so it's like that, um, really that realization. And I find it a lot, I watch myself doing it with my husband. I've been married for 38 years, and, he said something to me just last week, and I kind of thought, oh, and I even like, I could hear myself say, this is an old trigger. I know that he said those words, but that is not those words that he said. I'm taking them completely another way. That's not what he means. But here I go down the rabbit hole again. Now I'm upset, and I'm like, so it's just like watching that. Why am I doing this? What is making me feel so insecure or unworthy in this moment that I have to take his words and twist them, you know?
Mm.
And so, it's very, very interesting, and how, and I knew it was something else that had happened earlier in the day that had kind of took me by surprise. And that little trigger right there was just the thing that just like, knocked me on my knees. So it's just that, becoming the observer of these things, and like, why, wow, look at that. Here I go again down the rabbit hole.
And
So
I that is so huge though, because we like to beat ourselves up for these things, but when you bring in awareness around it, it's just like you've just elevated the whole collective because you have that awareness now and you
right.
can look at it and observe it, with some neutrality. It's still easy to do. My poor husband gets slashed at all the time. And then I'm like, oh, wait, he didn't mean that.
Right, right, exactly. So, and then guiding other people to say, when they come in, they're, come in and they're talking about some so and so who did them wrong, and I'm like, they weren't they weren't out to get you. Just, you know,
They were a mirror.
they were just a mirror. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't like to look at those mirrors. That's hard. Mirror work is
Mm,
hard when you see those things like, why does it still make me angry? Why do I still get triggered by this? And a lot of it really all comes back to looking at there again, we're looking externally for validation, right?
yeah.
When we just come back inside and know, hey, I am enough. I'm worthy of my own self-love. And we all know that. We're not going to, the first person you have to love, that what is that saying? You can't love someone else unless you love yourself first.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been told that from day one, right? But how many of us can really say that we feel that love of self?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what a beautiful thing to like, why isn't that part of the curriculum? Teach them young.
Right, right,
I heard that phrase my whole adult life, but I didn't know how to do it. It took
right,
years. And
right,
I'll be practicing till I die on that one.
right.
I get close and then I get, oh no, guess I'm not. Shouldn't say that to myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. The inner critic
Yeah.
is the worst one that we have. Far
Mm.
worse than any of our loved ones who we think are the worst critics is that inner critic,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing process, but the awareness, like you said, is key. When I was going to say, hey, wait a minute, Barb, you know,
That's huge.
it's huge. It is huge.
So I want to learn a little bit about the Akashic Records. That fascinates me. How did you get involved in that?
Oh, that's how did I get involved in that? Well, a few years ago, I would take any class that came along. I think it was back actually in 2019 is when I took my first Akashic record class. And I I really I found it fascinating. But back in 2019, I took the class. I was kind of really getting into it. And then I actually had I got very sick. I was in the hospital. I had cellulitis and sepsis.
Ooh,
And um, I was in the hospital. Oh, that was it was probably about a 2 month ordeal
oh my.
that I dealt with. And after that, I had a really hard time until I really recovered going into the Akashic records. Like I tried to, and I think um, I wasn't well enough. I wasn't, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually strong enough because the recovery took quite a while. Well, then I had a friend who asked me if I would, and I'm like, I don't know. I said I took this class, but I said then I got sick, and I don't think I can access the Akashic records. But I did a reading for her, and it went really well. So just recently, I took another class because I saw it. I met a teacher, somebody else who taught Akashic records. So I thought he kind of fascinated me. So I took a class. Well, then I realized that what I needed to do was I needed to do a much of my own work first, going into the records and doing my own work. So I have been doing that on a daily basis. And I do readings for people. And I don't know if you've ever done any Akashic record reading, and every reader reads a little bit different.
Mm.
Um, my experience with the Akashic records is I really tend to see people's patterns, if you will. Um, so if they ask about, a relationship, it's like, well, this keeps happening. And I'm going to just be bold enough to say that most of the time it's because we're always getting in our own way.
Yeah.
And, can you see, and if you could kind of point out and kind of direct people, can you see how you always kind of tend to get in your own way? Uh, and how they can kind of move past that and how spirit sees them. That's a lot of the message I get as well, is how their guides are there to assist and guide them. And so just kind of introducing people to that concept. So yeah, it's good. It's good work. And I know there are some readers who get very much more, I would say, very detailed information. Um, for example, I know a reader who is just like, I see a man in a red shirt and a green truck who, I that's not how I read. Um, but it's I think it's very great work on a soul level to see the to help people see the light of their own soul. It's
Mm.
just so hard to describe. And I guess that's I kind of a gift in it, and probably why I like doing the work so well is that when I get into someone's Akashic records, it's just like, oh my God, it almost can bring me to tears now because I'm like, I see you.
Mm. Well, it's like another level of your healing that you
Right.
do.
Right. And I think that's how I think since I've got into the Akashic record work, I will say that my healing has changed as well.
Mm.
Um, I don't um, I don't see when have people on my table, I don't like, yeah, you have a lot of issues in your sacral chakra, or you have some root chakra issues or heart issues or whatever. It's just like, no, I see your divine perfection. And it's almost like their guides are there and say, can you just tell them how beautiful they are? Can you tell them
Oh,
how light they are and how that they just radiate if they would just let some of the uh, worry and the doubt and that just kind of fall away and let their light shine. It's just like I see them in their divinity and in their divine perfection. And
mm,
it's just joy. It's just love. And that's, if we all could see each other that way, if we
oh
all could see
my,
each
yeah.
other as souls, you know, and in that pure divine place of just joy and love and awe,
Mm,
be able to walk through our days that way is would be so wonderful.
mm, mm. Completely would be. Is
Yes.
there, have you like ever gone into the Akash for like anything for the collective?
I have not. No. Um,
Is there any kind of messages that you've been getting about the collective and perhaps what we have ahead of us or what's needed in this time other than the obvious?
it's I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but I have noticed in the past, like probably in the past year, when I go into someone's Akashic records, what I usually see, some people see themselves in a library with books because they talk about that. It's a book of records, right? That's not how I see it. When I get in there, it's just like I'm sitting, and I think because what my very first teacher said, it's like you're having a conversation with someone's guides. Well, to me, the best conversations are where? At the dining room table. So I see
Mm,
myself sitting at a table, and across from me, like start coming up all their guides. And first it's their angelic guides and then the ascended masters. And in the past, maybe year or maybe more, I started getting some galactic guides. They are funny. They don't hold back. They just kind of like, oh, tell her to knock that crap off. It's just like that we're done. We're done with that. And we just need to move. They're just kind of like, just kind of tell it as it is. They aren't maybe quite as soft spoken as the angelic guides. So that I think is kind of the message that I see with the galactic guides. It's just like, come on, let's do the work, do your work and move on. Quit. It's kind of like a lot of quit the I want to say quit the blame game and quit being the victim and take ownership
yeah.
and also just let it fall away and just be who you are, like be the light that you are. Yes, those things happened. Was it hard? Yes. But just they're kind of like enough of the BS. Let's get going here. Let's get moving, you know.
Mm,
So, and not that they're not compassionate for someone who's gone through something difficult, but I, I think they think by the time they come to that point where they're searching out, like to do an Akashic record reading, like, okay, let's get on this.
yeah.
Let's move. So I think that's kind of the would be the message. It's just like, let's do this. Let's let this fall away and let's move on to something, to be your light, not to, like I said, dishonor any kind of trauma or anything like that. But
Mm.
I think they see us as well, they see us as the light that we are and maybe get a little impatient with us as we are impatient with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. You did answer my question because imagine if the whole collective just worried about working on themselves, not that, oh, you did this to me or I'm a victim of this. It's more like, let me look at my role in all of this. How did I invite this in? What did I do to create this? And work on that. I mean, that took me 50 some years to learn to just, be like, oh, if I work, it's really true. If I work on myself, everything else kind of falls into place. Where I
Right.
was resistant to like, no, that's too simple. That can't be it.
Right.
But
Right.
it's that simple.
It is that simple. And I think that is so true. That is something that I always try to come back around to. It's like it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated, but we like to complicate things because, if we complicate it and make it hard, then maybe we don't have to do it because it's too hard.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, and I remember once even having somebody ask me, where can I go for some advanced spirituality? And I'm like, there is no such thing. It's all very simple.
Yeah.
It's just about love, being love, doing love, just, the letting your light shine, letting all the other stuff fall away, you know. And but we do try to complicate it because, like I said, I think it takes us off the hook a little bit if we
Yeah.
complicate.
Yeah. And it gives a good reason to procrastinate. Well, that's really hard. So maybe I'll do that another time.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's not to dishonor, like I said, people's trauma, but or things that are hard because there are, we have gone through things that are hard, and it's till you decide. Like I always say that you talked earlier about grief, and I do remember that with my dad. Like someone asked me, like, how did I get out of that? Well, one day I had to decide. I had to make a decision. Do I want to stay in this place of pain that is just like or do I just have to decide
Yeah.
to not be here anymore and to move on to something that feels better, the next best feeling place. So,
And it's
and
not to say that it might not cycle through again at some
oh,
point in waves, because
absolutely,
it does,
it does. Yeah,
but live your life. You're here for that.
right, right. And it's too short. We know that. Especially the older we get, it just goes so fast, and it's just like, wow, weren't we just 20 a couple of
Yeah.
years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I work with all the gals I work with are half my age, and sometimes I have to remind myself that, oh my gosh, I'm twice as old as they are because I don't feel like it.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Some of the people I hang out with are 20 years younger than me. And when I stop and think about it, I'm kind of like, huh, so,
Yeah, you're right.
I feel just as young as you. I may not get out of my chair as fast. But-
Exactly. Our
so,
bodies remind us.
one more question before we wrap up today. Have you connected with your parents since you've gotten deeper into your spiritual awareness and connections?
Yes, and yes, I have. I don't, oh, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I don't spend a lot of time there. Um, I try to really be present present in this moment. I do look back to or maybe ask for their support and ask for their help. And I think back to some of the wisdom that they shared, the wisdom that they shared with me. Um, but I don't spend a lot of time in the past. I've that being said, I've also worked a lot on ancestral trauma, clearing lines, but I also feel that that's for me, that's more forward thinking than it is backward thinking. I don't want to say not backward, but I'm past thinking. So I'm doing that for myself and you know, for the forward moving generations,
Yeah.
generations coming
Yeah.
up.
That's a biggie. That's another thing that when you dig into yourself, bringing up that awareness and then realizing, oh my gosh, that probably goes back. And then you dig into it and you see. I don't know, are you familiar with Theta Healing at all?
No, I have heard of it, but I
Okay,
have
that's
not.
that's kind of a big part of that modality is clearing that up too. And
Yes,
it's yeah, when you start digging into it, you can just uncover a lot of stuff.
right, right. And I have done some of not the theta healing, but I have done definitely some generational healing and ancestral healing. And it is huge and it's big and it's important. Like I said, I try to think it as a forward moving motion. I don't
Yeah,
know if
it
that makes
is.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully our kids will, be free of those bonds,
Right.
that were strapping previous generations down.
Right.
Hmm. So, my dear, what do you have coming up? Where can people find you? And I will post information below in the comment box as well.
Well, I do have a website. It's www.barbarademers.com. I do see clients in my home. I do Akashic Record readings via Zoom or in person, depending upon where you are. I do remote healings, even though my preference is in person.
Yeah.
But I actually do quite a bit of remote healing as well. And I hopefully will be there's going to be a workshop in Minnesota for those here that are here in Minnesota with Awakening Healing Access. The end of September, beginning of October, we're doing a 2-day
Mhm.
workshop. Um, and that information. I don't know if it's up yet on the Awakening Healing Access website, but it should be soon. And for those watching, they'll be they're kind of doing a little road trip around the country doing some 1-day workshops. So I'm hoping to attend more of them besides the one just here in Minneapolis, but we'll see. I have some other travel adventures coming up. So I will be in Florida, in Jacksonville, doing, teaching with Awakening Healing Access middle of April. So that's
Nice.
coming up in a couple of weeks.
Busy
So
lady. Busy, busy.
yes, that's right.
Well, I am so grateful you took the time to chat today. I really am so grateful for you.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for inviting me. It was a fun conversation.
Yeah. And we will say goodbye until next time. Bye,
Okay, sounds
everybody.
good. Thank you. Goodbye.